Chocolate cake. I am Kuruna, the elder of our settlement. Recently, I had the good fortune to marry the one I love. Thus, I now find myself with two roles to fulfill, that of an elder and that of a wife. I can't say this was something I foresaw happening. I never envisioned myself getting married at all, let alone to a human. The new and unusual have been my constant companions in recent days. Perhaps that makes this a good opportunity to expand my horizons. I gave it some thought, but... well, I've lived for quite some time now, and I've done many things. It wasn't that simple to come up with something entirely new. I went to him for some advice, to which he replied, "Why not try out something you like?" On the topic of things I like, he's the first to pop to mind by a significant margin. But beyond that... Sweets, perhaps? Sweets are wonderfully beneficial. They're tasty, they help relieve fatigue, both physical and mental. Most of all, eating them makes me feel happy. Oh, to spend an entire day in a sweet shop, eating as much dessert as I want. That sounds divine. With that, my mind was made up. My two favorite things in the world were sweets and him. That was indisputable fact. So why not put both together? I could bake every sweet under the sun for him. It would be a challenge, but the idea had merit. He'd be pleased about a gift from me, which would make me happy. On top of that, we'd get sweets. What could be better? That then begged the question, what treat would I begin this new experience with? There's really no question, I suppose. The very first thing that came to mind was something that he often made for me. Chocolate cake. Oh, the flavor. Oh, the texture. It simply dominated the top of my favorite sweets list. I knew it well and even, yes, I would make chocolate cake. Decision made, I decisively jumped into action. Borrowing a recipe from him, I began my cake-making challenge. Preparation is the key to success. I began by carefully studying the recipe that I borrowed. This, is more complicated than I expected. I stared at the long list of ingredients and finely detailed steps. This was going to be a greater hurdle than I had anticipated. I'd gone into this plan believing all that was necessary was to add chocolate to a standard cake mix. No, I can handle this. I simply need follow the instructions exactly as written. That's the purpose of a recipe, after all. I shook my head. It was no use wallowing in defeatist thoughts. With a deep breath, I began to bake. Wow, this much sugar? Truly? What exactly is room temperature? And what type of room? On a scale of roughness, what does roughly combine equate to? Regrettably, my utter lack of baking experience quickly proved a significant hurdle. All of the unfamiliar terms made for excruciatingly slow going. But I'd known this would be a challenge going in. I persevered. That I was able to see it through to the end was in no small part due to his clearly written recipe. It's done. The monstrosity that emerged from the oven in no way looked anything like the cakes he had baked for me. You could tell by the simple fact that it was difficult to discern whether the cake was chocolate or just burnt. was already exhausted after making just this one cake. How would I manage an entire buffet of sweets? Had this dessert always been this intensive? And he baked it for me all the time? What an utter buffoon I was, unthinkingly gobbling it down without sparing a thought for the effort he must have put into it. My shame was overwhelming. I stared at the cake I'd worked so hard to bake, trying to keep myself from drowning in my terrible ineptitude. Right then...
I'm home! I smell something sweet.
He returned. Welcome home. As I walked over to greet him, my resolve hardened. I had baked this cake, so now I would have to lie in it, so to speak. I thought I'd try my hand at baking a chocolate cake. Care to give it a taste? I placed the misshapen lump of chocolate, possibly burnt, cake in front of him. May I have your opinion on it? Gathering my nerves, I dared to ask him the ultimate question after he ate a few bites.
It's delicious.
He cheerily answered with a smile. I hadn't expected to hear otherwise. He was magnanimous to a fault sometimes. I could have placed a lump of coal in front of him and called it cake, and he would have said the same thing. But the truth was the truth. There's no need to sugarcoat it. I know this sorry excuse for a cake is nothing like what you always make for me. I grew more depressed with every word I spoke. Only now that I tried baking one for myself do I realize how much work you must go through to make them for me. Not once did I consider the amount of effort you exuded, and when I finally decide to put my own effort into it, this is God. My chin sank, and my voice grew quieter and quieter, but he reached over and patted me gently on the hand.
You baked this for me, Kuruna. That alone makes it the best thing I've ever eaten in my entire life.
The simplest things can make me happy. All it took was him saying that to make me feel like all had been forgiven. Besides, this was the first time I'd tackled a new, very challenging project. Of course it wouldn't turn out perfectly. That fundamental truth had slipped my mind, and instead I had resorted to immature whining and complaining. Instead, what I ought to be was calm and collected. I drew myself back up and declared, "The next one I bake will be much improved." I even tried on a confident grin. I have to say, I made a pretty dashing picture, all told. He smiled and replied, "I can't wait to taste it." Yes, the next cake I baked would far eclipse this paltry first attempt. And someday, every one I made would be even better than the ones he made for me. I was the settlement elder, after all, and his wife. If it was for him, any task would be an easy task indeed.
Particularly like this corner piece. It's crispy with just a hint of bittersweet. It's a mature, complex flavor.
That's the burnt corner. Though I would require a lot of practice